There is no question that that Republicans are trying to make political hay here. And we have to know what the facts are. Everyone needs to take a deep breath. We should work together and solve the problems, not try to score political points.
Well, instead of just playing defense, White House senior advisor Dan Pfeiffer tried to go on offense against the administration's Republican critics Sunday, accusing them of trying to use recent controversies as political weapons. Joining me now, Missouri Republican Senator Roy Blunt, member of the Armed Services Committee. Senator Blunt, good morning, sir.
Good morning. How are you, Chuck?
I'm okay. There's been a lot of on the side writing when it comes to how Republicans on Capitol Hill have responded to some of these controversies, with the advice saying Republicans ought to let the facts drive the conversation and not try to come up with their own conclusion before the facts are all known. Do you think that's a fair critique of what some Republicans are doing on Capitol Hill?
I think letting the facts drive the discussion is the right thing to do. It's a little bit hard to do that when you're outraged, and there's a reason to be outraged about what happened at the IRS. There are reasons to continue to be concerned about the statements that are being made about Benghazi and what happened there. I think particularly the IRS is a thing that people are going to respond to. But frankly, I don't think there's any reason to rush through this or to reach conclusions that later don't turn out to be based on fact. I think there's plenty out there that needs to be talked about, and there's no reason not to take the time necessary to let that develop in the way it should develop. The congressional investigation is the right thing. If I was the president, I'd be trying to get ahead of this with some investigation that he generates himself. Whether that's a special counsel or not, I don't know, but there is no reason to jump to conclusions here. There are plenty of facts that I'm confident are still going to come out.
You brought up the special counsel. If there is a criminal investigation that the Justice Department announced last week they want to open on this, do you wait for that to conclude before you do start talking about a special counsel? And explain what you think a special counsel could do that an investigation at Justice could not.
You know, I'm not sure that from a congressional point of view that we're not better off having all the focus on congressional oversight. If I was the president, I believe I'd be of the mind that let's divert this in some way from the Congress, Democrats and Republicans who are not defending this behavior, particularly at the IRS. Let's divert this in some way. But what the Congress can do, the Republican House, I would hope the Democrat-led Senate both will say, let's get to the bottom of this and let's see where it leads.
And do you have confidence that on the Democratic side of the aisle in the Senate that, for instance, Max Baucus has announced he wants to do hearings? Are you confident that there's going to be an investigation in the Senate side as well?
Well, let's see. It certainly sounds like, at least at the starting line, everybody wants to get on the right side of this debate, which is what the IRS did is unacceptable. Let's find out more about it. I think it's highly unlikely, Chuck, that a couple of people in Cincinnati, Ohio, decided this was going to be the policy of the federal government. And I think it's maybe even more unlikely that when the IRS commissioner knew this a year ago, that somehow nobody else knew higher than him in the government. If that's the truth, he should have been fired just for that reason alone.
You've been around Washington a long time, though. You know the way the agencies can suddenly lock down and suddenly decide they're going to protect their own entity here because they're fearing any outside influence.
Well, you know, Stephen Miller had been around Washington a long time, too. And the other thing that happens in Washington is that what you do when you find out information can get you in a lot more trouble than the information you found out. So hard to believe that after 25 years at the IRS, he decided, you know, I'm just going to keep this to myself. Equally hard to believe that last month, when the White House counsel found out about this, she decided, I'm not going to tell the chief of staff. Come on. That may have happened. If that happened, she should be out of that job by the end of this week, I would think. Let's see what the logical thing here is that people really should have done, and then why they didn't do it if they didn't do it. There is plenty to find out here, and I've got a feeling that the Congress is going to find out what needs to be known by the American people. The IRS is a scary agency anyway. And when they become the central focus of something like this, everybody's attention within a month of when the people paid their taxes. Everybody's attention is on the side of, gee, the IRS can do anything they want to do if they're not supervised by somebody who understands how dangerous they can be to people and people's lives and livelihood.
Let me ask you about a hold you have put on the president's nominee to be the administrator at the EPA, Environmental Public Administration. Why do you have a hold on her? This is somebody that has worked for both Republicans and Democrats on different levels of government, overseeing environmental regulations.
Yeah. You know, I think this is another good example of an administration that is giving every evidence that they can't manage the government. This hold is not about building anything. It's not about spending any money. There is a long-term project that's been out there a long time in southeast Missouri in a big floodway in the Boot Heel. The administration told Senator McCaskill and I about 3 months ago that we will all agree on the facts. This is to try to get an environmental study out there, a draft study that people could respond to. 3 months ago, voluntarily, they set the deadline. By the way, it'd been a long time. They should have set the deadline. Said by March 15th, the government will all agree on the facts. This isn't agreeing on the conclusion. It's about agreeing on the facts. They missed that deadline. That was the day I said, okay, I'm going to put a hold on the one person that I can put a hold on.
But don't you end up stopping? Don't you end up gumming up the works at EPA? Couldn't EPA run better if it had a confirmed administrator?
It's hard to imagine that the EPA could run any worse than it's been running, but all they have to do is agree to the facts. Chuck, is one of the famous quotes that I've liked over the years is, you're entitled to your own opinion, but you're not entitled to your own facts. This is a case where the Fish and Wildlife people, the USDA, and the EPA just won't agree on the fundamental facts involved, and they're going to do that before I release this hold. It's not much to ask the government to stop fighting with the government. Clearly, we don't want the government to fight with ordinary citizens, but this is a case where the government's fighting with the government, and they're going to have to stop that. And this is not an unreasonable request. I am shocked that by April 15th, say a month late, they hadn't said, okay, we're going to do what we said we were going to do by March 15th.
All right. Roy Blunt, the Republican senator from the state of Missouri. Thanks for coming on this morning.
You bet.